America is standing in a moment unlike any other in recent memory, a moment that feels as though the air itself is charged with uncertainty, tension, and expectation. The sense is almost tangible. You can feel it in conversations in coffee shops, in the headlines flashing across screens, in the worried tones of friends and family who would never normally speak about politics, but now find themselves unable to avoid it. There is something in the atmosphere that tells us we are not just watching another news cycle, not just seeing another high-profile controversy, but witnessing a pivot point in the life of a nation. These are the moments that historians write about years later, the moments that children will ask their parents about. What was it like when that happened? And the answer will not be simple, because these moments are not simple. They are layered with emotion, conflict, and meaning that is bigger than any one headline or any one man. This is the kind of moment where a single decision, a single event, can set the tone for decades to come. It's like a fork in the road, but not one that's been carefully mapped out. Instead, it feels as though the path ahead is shrouded in fog. You can see just a few steps in front of you, but the further distance is uncertain. We know that something is coming, and we know that what comes will influence everything else. Our politics, our unity, our security, even our sense of identity as a people. This is the weight of a turning point, and it's the kind of weight that cannot be shrugged off without consequence. When a nation reaches a crossroads like this, it becomes impossible to separate the political from the personal. Decisions made in high offices filter down to the everyday lives of ordinary people, often in ways that are invisible at first. It might begin with changes in tone, how people speak to each other, how they see those who disagree with them. Then it moves into shifts in policy, in laws, in the expectations we have of one another as citizens. And before long, a subtle transformation takes hold. What was once a difference of opinion becomes a line in the sand. What was once debate becomes division. And when those divisions deepen, they do not remain confined to political rallies or media panels. They show up at dinner tables, in workplaces, in classrooms, even in houses of worship. That is why this moment feels so heavy. Because deep down, we know that whatever is about to happen will not only determine the fate of one man. It will influence the climate of the entire country. The emotional temperature of the nation is already high. And when tensions are this high, the smallest spark can set off a blaze. You can sense that the people are on edge. They're watching events unfold with a mix of fascination and fear, hoping for stability but bracing for chaos. And that is a dangerous place for any nation to be. Turning points in history are rarely peaceful or comfortable. They test the resilience of a people, forcing them to face truths they would rather ignore. They strip away the illusions we build around ourselves and reveal what we truly value, what we truly believe, and what we are willing to fight for. In moments like this, the heart of the nation is exposed. And when the heart is exposed, we find out whether it beats with courage or with fear. We find out whether we are capable of holding onto our principles under pressure, or whether we will compromise them for the sake of expediency. It is in times like these that leadership is tested. Not only the leadership of those in government, but the leadership within communities, families, and individuals. We are each faced with a choice: to be passive observers waiting to see how things will turn out, or to engage with the moment in a way that strengthens rather than weakens the foundation of nation. The temptation will always be to take sides in a simplistic, surface-level way, to reduce everything to us versus them. But doing that blinds us to the bigger picture. It blinds us to the fact that a nation's turning point is never about just one person. It is about the spirit of the nation itself. This is why the tension feels heavier than usual. It is why the uncertainty seems to hum in the background of everything else we do. Because we instinctively understand that the decisions made in the coming days and weeks will have consequences that extend far beyond politics. They will touch our cultural fabric, our sense of justice, our faith in the institutions we have built. And once certain lines are crossed, it is very hard to go back. The world has seen many nations stand at this kind of precipice before, and history teaches us that not all of them come through it intact. Some are strengthened by the test, emerging more united, more principled, more determined to uphold the values they claim to cherish. Others fracture under the strain, allowing fear, anger, and mistrust to eat away at their foundations, until what remains is a shell of what once was. And while it's easy to believe that such a fate could never befall America, history also teaches us that no nation is immune to the forces of division when those forces are allowed to grow unchecked. So here we are standing on the edge, feeling the weight of the moment pressing in from all sides, watching events move toward an outcome that will echo for years to come. It is a sobering place to be, one that requires more than casual attention or half-hearted concern. This is the kind of moment that demands awareness, vigilance, and a clear understanding of what is truly at stake. And the question that lingers in the air is not just what will happen next, but who we will be when it does. What unfolds before our eyes in moments like this often appears, at first glance, to be a purely political matter, names, faces, parties, and strategies clashing in the spotlight. The headlines present it as a contest of power, an unfolding drama of law, influence, and public opinion. But when you take a step back, when you peel away the layers of partisanship and the noise of the 24-hour news cycle, you begin to see something deeper. Beneath the surface of any major political event lies a web of meanings, values, and struggles that go far beyond the personalities involved. This is not just about what is happening to one individual. It is about the currents running beneath the surface of an entire nation. Perspective has a way of changing everything. Two people can look at the exact same situation and see two completely different realities, depending on where they stand and how they choose to interpret what they see. One may see a fight for justice, the other a dangerous overreach. One may view it as the correction of a wrong, while another may see it as an attack on the very principles they hold dear. The events themselves are fixed in time, but the meaning we attach to them shifts depending on our lens. This is why gaining a broader perspective is so critical, because without it, we risk being swept away by the emotions of the moment without understanding the larger forces at work. What is playing out now is not only a battle of policies or political maneuvering. It is also a clash of narratives. These narratives run deep into the cultural soul of the country, shaping how we understand justice, leadership, truth, and even morality. In one narrative, the current events may be framed as necessary accountability along due reckoning with actions that cannot go unanswered. In another narrative, it may be seen as the persecution of someone who represents resistance to a corrupt system. Both perspectives are deeply held, passionately defended, and entirely opposed to each other. And because they are rooted in fundamental beliefs about right and wrong, they cannot easily be reconciled with compromise. When people feel that their core values are being threatened, their reactions become visceral. This is why the atmosphere feels so charged, because for many, This is not just about political maneuvering. It is about the survival of the values they believe the nation stands for. And yet, when the dust eventually settles, history has shown that the reality is rarely as black and white as it seemed in the heat of the moment. Political events are always intertwined with cultural forces, historical trends, and moral struggles that stretch far beyond the timeline of any one administration or leader. Perspective allows us to see those deeper currents. It pushes us to ask questions that go beyond what is happening, and into why is this happening? What does it reveal about us as a people? When you look at events through that lens, you start to see patterns how moments of national crisis often reveal tensions that have been simmering under the surface for years, sometimes decades. You start to see how the rhetoric of leaders influences the tone of the culture, how small compromises in values can accumulate until they lead to massive shifts in the way society operates. This is why perspective is not simply an intellectual exercise. It is a survival skill for a nation. Without it, people react impulsively, driven by fear, anger, or tribal loyalty, rather than by a deep understanding of the stakes. Without it, we can be manipulated by those who benefit from division, allowing them to frame events in a way that keeps us locked in opposition rather than working towards solutions. Perspective creates space for clarity. It allows us to slow down and recognize when a story being told to us is incomplete, when the truth is being shaped to fit an agenda, and when our own emotions may be clouding our judgment. When you understand the power of perspective, you also realize that every national event, no matter how shocking, no matter how personal it may feel, fits into a larger story. That larger story is one of a nation continually defining and redefining itself, wrestling with its ideals and its flaws, struggling to live up to the promises it has made to itself and to the world. In that context, the current moment takes on a different meaning. It becomes part of a long, complex process of change, a process that is not always comfortable, not always fair, and certainly not always predictable. But perspective also requires humility. It means acknowledging that our personal view may be limited, that we may not see the whole picture right now, and that time often reveals truths that were hidden in the heat of the moment. It means holding our opinions with conviction, but also with enough openness to adjust them as more pieces of the puzzle come into view. Without that humility, perspective collapses into arrogance, and arrogance in a time of national tension is a dangerous thing. The challenge is that perspective takes effort. It is easier to accept the story we are given, to side with those who think as we do, and to reject any information that challenges our position. It is easier to reduce complex situations into simple slogans, but if we do that, we lose the ability to see the long-term consequences of the choices we make in the short term. We become so fixated on winning an argument today that we forget the kind of country we want to live in tomorrow. In times like these, perspective is the difference between reacting to events and understanding them. It is the difference between being caught up in the noise and hearing the deeper signal beneath it. And while no one can claim to see every angle perfectly, each of us has the ability to step back, to widen our view, and to remember that what is unfolding now is more than a political fight. It is a reflection of the soul of the nation, and the way we interpret it will shape how we respond to it. When a leader stands at the center of a national storm, the ripples extend far beyond the individual. The decisions they make, the words they speak, and even the way they carry themselves in the face of adversity become signals to the people watching. Leadership is never just about the leader. It is about the influence they cast over the entire environment in which they operate. When a figure like this faces a crisis, the impact is not contained to a courtroom, a press conference, or a political rally. It radiates outward, touching homes, workplaces, communities, and even the global perception of the nation itself. A leader is more than a position of authority, they are a symbol. Whether you support them or oppose them, whether you admire them or distrust them, their role inevitably carries weight. That weight is felt in the morale of those who identify with them, in the confidence of institutions, in the way allies and adversaries abroad view the stability of the country. Every public action, every private decision that becomes public, sends ripples through the collective consciousness of the people. These ripples may inspire unity or deepen division, depending on the character and choices of the leader in question. When a leader is in crisis, the people who follow them often experience the crisis as if it were their own. Supporters feel attacked when their leader is attacked. They take victories personally and defeats deeply. Opponents often feel vindicated when the leader stumbles, using the moment as confirmation of what they already believed. But either way, the emotional charge around that leader intensifies. That intensity feeds into the larger atmosphere of the nation, creating a heightened sense of urgency and volatility. It is also important to understand that the behavior of a leader under pressure sets a precedent. If they meet challenges with integrity, restraint, and vision, they show others how to stand firm without losing their principles. If they respond with anger, recklessness, or vindictiveness, that too becomes a model, one that trickles down into the culture. People begin to mirror the tone set by those at the top. You can see it in how political debates shift, how media narratives are shaped, and how everyday conversations sound. A nation often becomes a reflection of the spirit of its leadership. This ripple effect doesn't stop at culture, it reaches into policy. A leader under intense scrutiny may make decisions differently than they would under calmer circumstances. They may push harder to secure their base of support, sometimes making bold, controversial moves that shift the political landscape. Or they may become more cautious, avoiding risks and focusing narrowly on survival rather than long-term vision. Both paths have consequences, and those consequences are rarely limited to one moment in time. They can alter the direction of legislation, foreign relations, economic priorities, and the overall balance of power within the government. In the case of a nation like the United States, where the leader's actions are watched not only by citizens but by the entire world, the ripple effect becomes even more pronounced. International partners assess the stability and reliability of the country by how its leaders handle crises. Adversaries look for weaknesses to exploit. The confidence of global markets can shift in response to perceived strength or instability. In this way, the challenges of one leader can influence not just domestic affairs, but the global order. The personal side of leadership also plays a role in the ripple effect. Leaders are human beings, and when they are under extraordinary pressure, their humanity is tested. They may lean on trusted advisors, family members, or long-time allies, but they may also find themselves isolated, surrounded by voices that reinforce rather than challenge their perspective. The quality of those relationships matters, because the advice and encouragement they receive will often shape how they act, and, by extension, how the nation experiences the crisis. Even those who oppose the leader in question are impacted by their choices. Political opponents may be forced to respond to each development, adjusting their strategies and messages in real time. Movements that oppose the leader may gain momentum, funding, and influence in the wake of each new controversy. And just as the leader's supporters often personalize their connection to them, the opposition can also take events deeply to heart, seeing each twist as a moral battle that must be won. This cycle of escalation can deepen national divides, as each side sees itself as the defender of the nation's true values and the other side as a threat. The ripple effect of leadership during a crisis is not only emotional and political, it is generational. Young people watching these events unfold are learning what leadership looks like, for better or worse. They are absorbing lessons about truth, justice, power, and resilience. They are forming ideas about what is acceptable in public life and what is not. These formative impressions can shape the kind of leaders they themselves will become in the future, whether in politics, business, or community life. In moments like this, the actions of a leader become more than temporary responses to unfolding events. They become part of the historical record. Long after the headlines fade, historians, educators, and ordinary citizens will look back and ask, what did this leader do in the face of their greatest challenge? Did their actions strengthen the bonds of trust and respect in the nation, or did they contribute to the erosion of those bonds? Those answers will not only define the leader's legacy, but will also influence how future generations view the time we are living in right now. This is why the ripple effect of leadership cannot be underestimated. It is not a passing phenomenon, but an ongoing chain reaction. It reaches into places we do not always see, shaping attitudes, behaviors, and decisions in ways that can endure long after the original crisis has passed. Every statement made, every choice taken, every posture assumed in this moment will send signals that influence how people feel, how they act, and what they believe about their country and its future. There comes a point in a nation's story when the conversation must rise above the noise of politics and step into the realm of moral responsibility. In moments of deep division, when tempers flare and distrust grows, the call to unity and intercession becomes more than a nice idea. It becomes a necessity. This is not about agreeing on every issue, not about erasing differences or pretending they don't exist. It is about remembering that there is something greater than the immediate conflict, something that binds the people of a nation together beyond party lines, ideologies, and personal grievances. When the weight of a crisis presses in, the health of a country depends on whether its people can pause long enough to seek wisdom, to stand in the gap for one another, and to direct their attention towards something higher than themselves. Intercession at its core is an act of humility. It is the recognition that there are forces, challenges, and complexities far beyond our ability to control or fully understand. It is the act of saying, we need help beyond what we can produce on our own. In times like these, it means lifting the nation, not just its leaders, but its people, its institutions, and its very spirit, into a place of intentional care. That care may take the form of prayer, reflection, or simply choosing to speak words that heal instead of words that wound. In a country where disagreement has too often turned into open hostility, this kind of intercession is both radical and powerful. Unity, on the other hand, does not mean uniformity. It does not require that every citizen think, vote, or believe the same way. True unity is the ability to hold differing convictions while still standing together for the good of the whole. It is the strength to say, we may not see eye to eye on every matter, but we will not allow our differences to destroy the foundation we share. That foundation is built on shared hopes. safety for our families, justice in our laws, opportunity for our children, and dignity for every person. When a crisis threatens to tear at those foundations, unity becomes the safeguard that keeps the entire structure from collapsing. The challenge is that unity is often hardest to find when it is needed the most. In moments like this, the temptation is to pull away from those who think differently, to surround ourselves only with people who reinforce our own perspective. Social media amplifies this tendency, feeding us voices that echo our own thoughts and shielding us from the discomfort of opposing views. But unity cannot grow in echo chambers. It is forged in the difficult spaces where differences are acknowledged but not allowed to become barriers. It is born in the willingness to listen, not to respond, not to debate, but to truly understand where another person is coming from. In the current climate, the call to pray for America is not about choosing sides. It is about recognizing that the stakes go far beyond the political fortunes of any one individual. It is about acknowledging that when the atmosphere of a nation is poisoned with hatred, fear, and cynicism, no victory is truly a victory, no matter who claims it. The strength of a country is measured not only by the power of its economy or the might of its military, but by the condition of its heart. If the heart grows hard, if compassion fades and truth becomes negotiable, then the foundation begins to crack from within. This is why the call to intercede is urgent. It is not passive. It is not an excuse to avoid action. Rather, it is the foundation for wise action. A people who pray, reflect, and seek understanding are less likely to be manipulated by fear. They are less likely to be swept into cycles of retaliation that leave everyone worse off. Intercession shapes the heart, and a shaped heart can shape a nation. Praying for America in this moment means lifting up not only those we agree with, but also those we don't. It means asking for clarity where there is confusion, courage where there is fear, and strength where there is weariness. It means asking for leaders to act with wisdom and humility, regardless of the pressures around them. It means believing that transformation is possible even when the evidence seems thin. The truth is, unity and intercession work together. You cannot have lasting unity without a spirit of intercession, because unity requires the kind of patience, forgiveness, and perspective that does not come naturally in the heat of conflict. And you cannot have effective intercession without some measure of unity, because to intercede for a nation is to care about its people as a whole, not just the ones who share your views. These two forces reinforce one another, creating a strength that can withstand storms. In the midst of the present challenges, the call to unity and intercession is not simply about preserving peace for its own sake. It is about preserving the capacity of the nation to endure, to rebuild trust, and to move forward when the crisis has passed. Without it, the divides will deepen until they become chasms, and those chasms will be harder to bridge later. But with it, even the most difficult moments can become opportunities for renewal. In this way, the act of uniting in prayer or mutual concern becomes more than a symbolic gesture. It becomes a strategic act of preservation, a choice to safeguard the future even in the face of present turmoil. In moments of national upheaval, the instinct to choose a side can be overwhelming. The noise of competing voices grows so loud that it feels as if every citizen is being forced to declare allegiance to one camp or the other, as if there is no room for anything in between. But when the air is thick with division, the most important choice may not be between political factions at all. It is between two very different ways of living, one rooted in fear and the other grounded in faith, one that thrives on chaos and one that seeks order, one that fuels hate and one that extends love. The higher path is not the easiest to walk, but it is the one that has the power to hold a nation together when everything else threatens to pull it apart. Fear is persuasive. It convinces people that the only way to survive is to fight against others, to distrust anyone who thinks differently, to cling tightly to the familiar, even if it is no longer serving them well. Fear narrows vision. It makes the future seem dark and uncertain, and it drives people to protect themselves at all costs, even if that means undermining the very principles they claim to defend. In politics, fear is a powerful currency. It can be traded for votes, loyalty, and unquestioning support. But it always comes at a cost, and that cost is the erosion of trust, compassion, and unity. Faith, in contrast, opens the view. It does not ignore the reality of challenges, but it refuses to believe that those challenges are bigger than the strength, wisdom, and resilience that exist within a people. Faith does not demand blind optimism. It demands courage to keep working toward what is right, even when the outcome is uncertain. In a moment when tempers are hot and patience is thin, faith becomes the quiet force that steadies the hand and clears the mind. It allows people to see each other as more than political labels, to imagine a future that is worth building together. Chaos, like fear, has its own strange allure. For some, it feels like proof that the system is being shaken, that change is coming, that the old order is being disrupted. But chaos left unchecked rarely produces the kind of change that builds something better. It tends to leave things broken, scattered, and harder to repair. It creates instability that seeps into every area of life, from the economy to community relationships. When leaders or citizens embrace chaos as a strategy, they often justify it as necessary for progress. But history has shown that sustained disorder weakens the very structures that make progress possible. Order, on the other hand, is not about rigid control or suppressing freedom. True order creates a space where differences can be debated without turning into destruction, where justice can be pursued without descending into revenge, where the rights of individuals are protected while the good of the whole is still valued. Order gives people the security they need to think beyond survival, to focus on building and creating rather than simply defending. In the face of national strain, order acts as the framework that holds the country steady enough to address its problems without collapsing under them. Hate is perhaps the most corrosive force of all. It can disguise itself as righteous anger or justified retaliation, but at its core, it is always destructive. Hate reduces people to enemies, erasing their humanity and making it easier to dismiss, harm, or even destroy them without remorse. It breeds cycles of conflict that feed on themselves, ensuring that reconciliation becomes more distant with every passing day. And like fear and chaos, hate is contagious. It spreads quickly through communities, fueled by rhetoric, media, and personal grievances until it feels almost normal. Love, in contrast, is often misunderstood in times of conflict. Many see it as weakness, as if caring about others means compromising one's convictions. But love in its truest form is not soft or passive. It is fierce in its commitment to truth, justice, and the dignity of every person. It refuses to let differences become reasons to devalue someone. Love does not remove accountability. It frames accountability in a way that builds rather than destroys. In a divided nation, Love is the only force strong enough to pull people back from the brink, because it addresses the heart as well as the mind. Choosing the higher path means rejecting the shortcuts that fear, chaos, and hate offer. It means refusing to be drawn into the spiral of reaction and retaliation. It calls for discipline, not just in words and actions, but in thought. It means being intentional about the media we consume, the conversations we engage in, and the motives behind the causes we support. This higher path requires a long view, the ability to look beyond the crisis of the moment and ask, what kind of country do we want to leave for the next generation? In practice, walking this path will often feel lonely. It will sometimes mean disagreeing with those you normally align with, because their approach may be feeding division instead of healing it. It will mean choosing patience over instant gratification, integrity over expediency and bridge, building over wall building. It will require strength to resist being swept along by the loudest voices and the most sensational headlines. The higher path is not about avoiding conflict. It is about engaging in it differently. It is about holding firm to convictions while still holding space for the humanity of those on the other side. It is about being willing to lose an argument today if it means preserving the possibility of peace tomorrow. It is about keeping one's eyes fixed not on the storm itself, but on the horizon beyond it. And it is about believing, even in the midst of tension, that the nation can emerge from its trials not weaker and more divided, but stronger and more united than before.